من سلام میشه لطف خیلی ممنون بگین که چرا امروز اینجا آمدید؟
امروز تظاهرات دیگه در حالی که مردم افغانستان مرده را نیستند، بیچارا را سرشان خیلی ظلم میشه اونجا. طالبان رسیده و کشتار رسانده که همه مردم افغانستان و گریز هستند که زندگی جدید از جای دیگر شروع کنند. بعضشان مرد، بعضشان اطلاق کرد در آخری بمه که کپید در ایرپورت افغانستان دیگر تلفات زیاد دادن دیگه. ما آوازشان هستیم، آمدیم اینجا که به استاد شدیم. اگه اونا آواز ندارن، افغانایی که در هر جای دنیا هست آوازشان هست دیگر. از اون خاطر
انتظارتون از مردم ایران در رابطه با افغانستان چیه؟
ما از مردم ایران تقاضا میکنیم که شنیدیم دیدیم خیلی ظلم شد بالای افغانای خود ما در اولا. ما از مردم ایران کدام تقاضا نداریم، از دولتش تقاضا داریم که حداقل به کمک افغانا فعلا برسن که ما ببینیم که چقدر انسانیت در دنیا باید ما ببینیم چقدر انسانیت. حالا این حادثه بالای هر کس میشه که بیاید، مگم خدا بالاست، باید خدا را دیده برشان کمک برسونن تا وقتی که ببینیم کجا بخیر جابجا میشه.
انتظارتون از دولت کانادا چیه؟
دولت کانادا را میخواهیم که نه تنها ماجرینی که فعلا اسناد دارن باید برآیند، ما میخواهیم داینده دیگه افغانایی که اونجا ماندن که بی سرپناه میمانند که فامیلایشان دیگه جا هستن، حداقل یک فارم بکشن که ما هم بتانیم که فامیلایی که باقی میمونن بکشن افغانستان، یا یک دولت صحیح به وجود بیارن که ما خود ما بریم با ایشان همدردی کنیم و کمک کنیم.
خیلی ممنون. زنده باشید. اوکی.
Gathered here today to raise awareness about the humanitarian crisis that's going on in Afghanistan. There's a forcible regime that's taken over. There are millions of people at risk, women or minority communities, and we want to raise awareness for those people who don't have a voice anymore.
What do you expect from Canadian government?
We want the Canadian government to continue the evacuations. There are Canadian citizens that are still stuck in Afghanistan who have not had access to leave. There are Afghan allies who supported the missions of Canadians in Afghanistan that are also stuck. We need to help them get out. We have a responsibility to those people, and their lives are in danger right now.
And in addition to that too, we need to expand the commitment that Canada has made. 20,000 is not enough, and we also need to lessen the requirements that are required in terms of documentation, because it just has it's not created a path that a lot of people can take. So we need the government to reform.
And what do you expect from women organizations? Because you know, like the history that Taliban in the past was in power, and they were so brutal toward girls and women. And now, what do you expect from women organizations around the globe, and specifically in Canada? Because sometimes you see they are passive and they say, "Oh, that's their culture. We cannot do anything with it." What do you expect from them?
Well, I think with that, it starts with education. It's not part of the culture for women to be oppressed. It's not part of the religion for women to be oppressed. So perhaps if that's what they believe, education would be the first step. And then to treat the women like equals, like they would deserve the same rights as and the same freedoms that women have here and anywhere in the world.
And to add to that, the Taliban have currently told women in Afghanistan to not leave their homes because their fighters are not trained. I don't understand what they need to be trained on to not harass or assault women. So I think the biggest thing that our organizations here can do is advocate for those women. It's to work and to pressure the Taliban to recognize those women. Many of those women are breadwinners in those households. And if they cannot leave their homes, they cannot provide for their families.
So what can we do here as you know, like Iranian, Afghanian, and other? What can we do here? How can we help?
We need to pressure our government officials to work with the organizations to make them include women in the process. We need to make sure that human rights are upheld. If the Canadian American militaries are working with them to work on their evacuation projects, then we can also put pressure with the international community to recognize the rights of these groups and to bring human rights there.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, with all the resettlement that's happening, these are people who are coming with a lot of trauma, who have lost everything in their lives, and they need a lot of support. So in terms of the community coming together, other organizations. There's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you very much.
Great event and having us all out here. I hope everyone is doing well given the circumstances. Currently, Afghanistan is facing a humanitarian crisis. There are many Afghans that are in imminent danger, especially our Afghan allies that supported the mission in Afghanistan. Women, Hindus, Hazaras, and other religious ethnic minorities are being cleansed. This is not a reformed Taliban. This is the same Taliban that erased women from society over 24 years ago. Today, the Taliban have literally asked women to stay home because they are not trained. They're not trained. Taliban are not trained. They have publicly announced that their soldiers need to be trained on how to not assault women. Shame. Taliban have been inducing violence against women since around 1994. Some women were breadwinners of their family. They are the teachers, the doctors, the police officers, and so on. Are we supposed to forget about these women? Before the Taliban come into power, some women had rights. Women were contributing members of society. We were seen. And now they want us to forget these women, the same women that helped to build Afghanistan. I was really hoping to see Justin Trudeau here because I wanted to ask what the point was of sending planes to bring refugees over if they're coming back empty. Canada has stopped its evacuation mission. There are Canadian citizens still in Afghanistan that need to be evacuated. There are Afghan allies that support the Canadian mission that worked with our military, our NGOs, our people, and they are now still there. We Canadians cannot accept leaving our people and our allies behind. Jagmeet Singh has advocated to increase support to humanitarian aid and women's rights organization in Afghanistan. Justin Trudeau, I call upon you again to ask, what are you doing? What are you advocating for? This is why I am urging everyone here today to hold your political officials accountable. Performative allyship is not enough. Instagram posts are not enough. We need you to take action. Thank you.
You guys hear me in the back? I go by the name of Crescent, and before I start doing my speech, I want y'all to say, Free Afghanistan! Fists up! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! I said, welcome to the show, everyone, grab a seat. Any chair you see, it's been a gruesome couple weeks, trying to fight for peace. As I look around in the we marching all alone, but they the first ones to tweet. I get it though, it's about clout, not the cause. Jesus had 12 followers and still got crossed. No love lost. Let me take y'all back to the start and explain what's been pulling all the strings in my heart. In '79, Russia invaded Afghanistan, trying to take over the people and occupy the land. Though we weren't equipped, we the last ones to quit, fighting back to '89 when the Soviets split. Now hold up, why is that relevant? Because the Pakistani closet is full of Afghan skeletons. Yeah, okay, hold up. I said hold up, now why is that relevant? Because the Pakistani closet is full of Afghan skeletons. And Muslims nowadays are focused more on what has gelatin. When it comes to support, they become a little hesitant. Blame it on the president or a lack of evidence. As they see us bleed, we hear them read, we'll be heaven sent. It's a facade to dedicate yourself to God but not help the ones in front of you. Don't that seem odd? Anyways, in '94, the Taliban emerged. These are the bums, you know, the scum of the earth, the losers turning on their people and burning schools, hospitals, old-fashioned medieval barbarians, the definition of evil. From '96 to '01, we got help from no one. That's a bit to digest all in one night. Say less, let's talk about this one flight that led to US invading Afghanistan out of spite. Bush needed any reason to just do it like Nikes. What would you do if the camera's on you and you get a Klondike? The pressure's on. If you in the cut, don't measure wrong. The two forces, you know they can never get along. So the Taliban left. but really, they just hiding. Pakistan welcomed them back to a private island, gave them a home knowing what they know about the lives that they took, all up on the land that they stole. 2021, Biden said troops will be withdrawn. That's when the Taliban quickly respawned, and their response was tearing up the peace bond. Now with the peace gone, what's even left to speak on? The people getting anxious, get Pakistan sanctioned. That means punished for their role on all the lost souls that the Taliban ended under their control. This is the world's longest war, countless bodies, we can't keep score. I said, this is the world's longest war, countless bodies, we can't keep score. I'm begging for a change and yet I see none. Don't wait for a hero, instead just be one. Couple more points before I get going. Sanction Pakistan and free Afghanistan. Fist up! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Louder! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Free Afghanistan! Let's go.
Thank you so much.
Just looking at this crowd, it gives me hope, because we're all speaking up and raising our voices. And I want to thank each and every one of you. The reason I got into music was not because of my love for music. It was so that I could speak up for those people who don't have a voice. And today, I'm thankful that I can, as much as I possibly can. So I wanted to just sing a little bit of the song that I dedicated to those Afghan girls who have once again lost their freedom. دخترم دختر افغانم من دختر ملک دل ایرانم من مشکن بالو پرم را مشکن تاج سرم را مشکن از تو بازو چو بدمن از تو بازو چو بدمن یش دارم چو منانای بهتر زده هم چو بلبل و چمن زینب و ناز و مهری به سخن زینب و ناز و مهری به سخن. Now I will give a very quick speech. The international community, under the leadership and for the support of the United States of America, went to Afghanistan to topple a terrorist-sponsored government, and a collection of 46 nations stayed there to fight a terrorist organization called the Taliban. Finally, after 20 years of fighting, loss of thousands of precious lives, and spending thousands of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, President Biden decided to accept the most shameful defeat in the history of the United States of America and leave Bagram Air Base under cover of the dark at night, and left a vast land to a bunch of religious zealots wearing slippers and riding Chinese motorbikes. From the very first days, everybody in Afghanistan knew that these terrorists were coming from Pakistan to fight Americans and their allies, as well as Afghan forces. But nobody wanted to name the culprit that supported the insurgency for political reasons. The most powerful democracy in the world, and the only superpower, lowered itself to the level to sit at the same table with a well-known terrorist organization that had millions of dollars of bounties on their leaders' heads not long ago. Not only the United States of America, but all their NATO allies together gave in to a bunch of religious zealots and accepted a humiliating defeat. It is probably the first time in the history of human civilization that Ahura is so clearly defeated by Ahriman. Good lost to evil. The fate of 36 million Afghan men and women is given to the hands of a group of zealots who do not believe in human rights, freedom of speech, equality, rights of women, democracy, or progress. They want to push the society to 1400 years back, Terrorism is their way of forcing themselves on masses of people. They believe that masses are animals and do not know the right way of living, and only religious leaders or clergymen can decide for them how to live. They do not recognize any international organization and believe that science and technology misleads humanity. President Biden committed a crime against humanity by pulling US forces out of Afghanistan before reaching a meaningful political settlement. Terrorists, aka Islamic radicals, jihadists, Salafis, or Islamic fundamentalists make a strong network around the world and are the most serious threat for the security of mankind. Their aim is to destroy human civilization and enslave all human beings around the world. The defeat of the Soviet Union emboldened and strengthened terrorist groups all around the world, from North Africa to the Far East. The defeat of the United States will provide every Islamic extremist with the belief that their ideologies come from God and it is the most righteous ideology. President Biden, by pulling out US troops from Afghanistan, not only accepted a humiliating defeat, but provided terrorists with a vast land that they will certainly try to expand. All terrorist groups such as the Taliban, ISIS, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lashkar-e-Jangawi, Chechen terrorists, East Turkestan Islamist movement, Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, Al-Qaeda, etc., have the same ideology and support each other. Afghanistan will be the best territory for them to flourish. There are governments in the world that use terrorism as a means to reach their political goals. At present, Pakistan and Iran are the two states that have heavily invested in terrorism. Every soul in Afghanistan knows that the Taliban couldn't get to this level of power without financial, military, and political support from Pakistan. Pakistan Foreign Minister Mahmoud Qureshi is shamelessly jockeying through the capitals in the region to convince the leaders to recognize the Taliban government. Herewith, I'm calling on the United Nations not to give the seat of Afghanistan in the United Nations to a representative from the Taliban until they share power with all ethnic and religious groups in Afghanistan. 2. All member states of the United Nations should not recognize a Taliban regime until there is a broad-based government that includes all ethnic and religious minorities, including non-Muslims. 3. Sanctions of all types should be imposed on the Taliban to force them to respect human rights of all people living in that country, respect women's rights as equal to that of men's, respect children's rights, and respect the rights of religious minorities, including non-Muslims. Number 4, all members of the United Nations should designate the Pakistani government as a terrorist sponsor state and impose political, economic, and military sanctions on Pakistan. 5, sanctions should be imposed on Pakistani politicians and military who promote terrorism and support terrorist groups and use them against the neighboring countries for political gains. I also call on the Human Rights Commission to watch all actions of the Taliban against the Afghan civilians and report every misconduct to the United Nations to take proper action against them. And stop the Taliban from ultra-judiciary killings and inhuman punishments such as stoning, cutting hands and feet, and public executions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. John. One of you guys for being here. I do have a speech. I will be saying it a little bit later. But first, I would like to introduce Nuria and Shaista. They will be saying a few things as well. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Shaista and I want to talk about women's rights. To the Afghan women in Afghanistan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the world has abandoned you. I'm sorry that your rights and liberties are being taken away from you. I'm sorry that you cannot attend a university to seek knowledge. I'm sorry that you are forced to get married. I'm sorry that you're being enslaved by the barbaric, uncivilized terrorists physically and sexually. I'm sorry that you're not allowed to have any control over your own body and are forced to wear burqas. I'm sorry you won't be able to share your amazing and wonderful talents with the rest of the world. I'm sorry they aren't allowing you to have any independence that you deserve. I'm sorry that the feminists and women's rights group organizations throughout the world are ignoring you. I'm sorry that they're robbing you of your aspirations and hopes. I'm sorry. Taliban are evil and cruel, but they're not fools. When it comes to international audience, they try to play it down. There's a big difference between what they say in the media and what they do on the ground. And what Taliban leaders have stated that they will provide women with their Islamic rights. And they will respect those rights. But these are lies. These are lies that they want people to believe in order for them to not feel compelled or mad about not being involved in this crisis. Therefore, as Afghans, we shall speak up on the behalf of Afghan sisters. We're going to raise our voice. We need to increase public awareness and put more pressure on the international community to act. We also need to inform everyone about the 21st century. These should not happen to every woman in the world. All the Afghan women want is peace and their liberties, and I don't think that's too much to ask. Inshallah, one day this nightmare will end.
Great job. Hi everyone, my name is Maria Sarhadi, and for the next 3 minutes I'll be speaking about the situation of Afghan children. Afghanistan is currently the worst place you could be born. Malnutrition, illness, and mortality rates of Afghan children are among the highest in the world. The number of children killed or injured in Afghanistan increased by more than 55% compared to last year. Over 40% of our children are out of school. The new Taliban takeover has not only worsened the situation, but it has led to the death of many of these children. Our children do not have childhoods. They are not concerned with getting up late for school or doing their schoolwork on time. Instead, they are worried about whether they will have enough food to eat or whether their siblings or parents will make it home alive that day. Millions of our children are growing up without the opportunity to learn. Instead, they are forced to work and deal with the type of trauma that even trained adult soldiers cannot handle. The most unimaginable pain is endured by our children. I came across a video of a young girl who was in total shock after witnessing her father being shot right in front of her. She wasn't yelling or expressing her rage. Instead, she sat there quietly with single tears streaming down her cheeks, allowing her tears to join the splatters of her father's blood. And through her eyes, you could tell how numb and broken she felt. I wanted to talk about this post because this little girl's reaction demonstrates the normality of Afghanistan's bloodshed. This is not limited to one child's experience. Thousands of children lose family members because of the war and are expected to miraculously overcome the unbearable pain and trauma quickly so that they could fend for themselves or find a way to provide for their families. So after standing here and observing the shared emotions, I'm sure many individuals in this crowd feel the same way I do. I feel embarrassment. Embarrassment because it is truly embarrassing living in a world and among a society that claims to know the difference between right and wrong, and yet we continue to live such a privileged lifestyle every day, completely ignoring the fact that millions of children are suffering. So I'd like to take a second to apologize to Afghan children. I am truly so sorry. I'm so sorry that the world has failed you. I'm sorry that your home is the most unsafe place for you. I'm going to end off saying that regardless of which political leader you support or which country you support, you cannot justify the pain and the suffering Afghan children go through. You just can't. It's impossible. So whether you want to sign a petition to hold your politicians accountable, donate to foundations supporting these children, or advocating for these children, anything can help. 9.7 million Afghan children are in need of immediate assistance. The unity shown in these protests are promising. So let's focus on protecting our future generation, our children. Thank you.
چه عضوی بدن داورد روزگار دیگر عضوها را نماند قرار تو که از مهنت دیگران بیغمی نشاید که نامند نهند آدمی. Human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Louder. Good. I want to begin by saying that the entire earth that we stand on today belongs to the one creator. And I also would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Muslim people. I want to personally thank everyone for showing up and supporting us today. You have decided to become part of the solution and not the problem, and I would like to recognize that. You are using your privilege to stand against oppression and to stand for justice. I want to also mention that standing up here and speaking about this topic was incredibly difficult for me. I'm emotionally drained. My anxiety has become crippling and my heart is in turmoil. My anger is enough to move mountains, and it's not only because of the Taliban and their supporters, but also because of the silence and negligence from the rest of the world. The silence that screams that my life as an Afghan woman has no value. That I and the other 38 million Afghans are better off dead. I want to apologize for reading off my phone. The only reason I'm doing so is to ensure that I include all my points without going into a huge angry rant. So I hope that's okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aida. My expertise on this conflict is being born and raised in Afghanistan. I'm a child of war. I've only witnessed my nation suffering and in pain. Some of the things that I will share today hit extremely close to home for me due to my personal experiences as well as my family in Afghanistan. I'm here today, just like you, from one of the safest corners of the world, representing the millions of oppressed people, including children, who live in the most dangerous country in the world, an exhausted and war-torn, yet steadfast, persevering Afghanistan. I'm going to briefly summarize what's going on and why we have all gathered here today. Afghanistan has not witnessed a day of peace and tranquility for the past 4 decades, especially after the Taliban's regime, which was dismantled in 2001, the year I was born. Today, we're witnessing history repeat itself. The same terrorist group that destroyed my nation and dragged it 3 decades behind is now leading the country again. Today, it's the same wild beasts that throw the flag of my country away, change the name of my country, and now call it their home. They call Afghanistan their home. And they don't even call it Afghanistan anymore. Imagine how we're all feeling because a group of people showed up one day and removed our entire identity. Just like what was done to the indigenous people whose land we're standing on today. Today, schools are shut, banks are closed, cash is gone, people with dollars are punished, prices are tripled, the entire media is censored, people are tortured and stopped from going to the airport. They're going house to house and looking for people who work for the government. I have family members who experience this. The terrorist Taliban using Facebook to identify and then execute thousands of people who reject their draconian role. I want to make it clear that this is not a civil war. The Taliban are not Afghans. They're barbaric, demonic monsters. They have no religion and do not represent any religion, especially not my religion. For the Islam I follow cannot be theirs. I don't even want to begin discussing the atrocious and nightmarish rule prior to 2001 and its consequences in the past 20 years. As a result of their recent evil actions, millions of Afghans have been displaced, thousands have lost their loved ones, and hundreds of children have become sex slaves. Yes, all of this in the past 2 months. If you think the Taliban is not an international human rights issue, I urge you to educate yourself on this matter, as this group has been backed by countries like Saudi, UAE, and up until today by Pakistan. Moreover, the West have had a much more cynical role in this war for the past decades. The barbarian Taliban and their ideologies are sadistic and inhumane, especially their views on women and children. Their laws include keeping little girls as sex slaves, murdering women if they're outside their homes without a male relative, denying women access to education and employment. There have been multiple reports that the terrorist Taliban are going door to door and forcibly taking girls as young as 12. I repeat, as young as 12 to be sex slaves for their jihadist militants. I want everyone to really imagine that for a second. Picture your child, your niece, your sister, or even you getting forcibly ripped from your family to become a savage's sex slave. Today, women in higher education are too afraid to leave their homes to continue their education. In many provinces, they've banned schools for females. Poets, historians, and artists are killed viciously and stopped from continuing their career. They're burning down shops, hitting and blowing up civilians in buses and roads, and punishing random people in the streets for disobeying them and claiming that they're following the Islamic law. Imagine giving guns to a bunch of wild animals and letting them use it however they want. What do you expect from them? You know for sure they're going to shoot whoever they want until they get their way. The problem is, their way is evil. I want everyone to go back to 1970s in Afghanistan, before people invaded my country. Afghanistan gave women the right to vote before North America did. My country had infamous poets, Rumi, who I'm sure you all have heard about. He's Afghan. This is important to highlight because I want everyone to know that we have our own culture, our own set of values that's nothing like the values and the culture the Taliban have been trying to enforce on us. We have a beautiful culture, from our red carpets, our hand-stitched, embroidered, colorful clothes, our food, our music, to even our poetry. I wish my people were known for their hospitality, perseverance, hard work, rather than being known for our pain. When we pray 5 times a day, we praise our Creator and say, Allahu Akbar, standing in submission to our Lord. The Lord that calls Himself the most merciful, the most compassionate, the same Allah that forbids me from burning an ant or harming a plant. How can the Taliban commit every evil action using the same words to viciously murder families and rape children? did not create the terrorist Taliban, so I want to know, why are we the only ones trying to dismantle them? Why is everyone desensitive to the violence in Afghanistan? Why does no one care about the pain of my people? Why has the world been in silence for the past 2 decades? Is it because we're not the US, the UK, France, Germany, or China? Afghans were born into this. They didn't choose this life. They didn't get to pick the geographical location of their birth. That little girl covered in blood because her mother got shot for being outside her home, or the child who's screaming because she just got ripped apart from her family to be an old man's sex slave. The woman being beaten and murdered for practicing a basic human right. Not one of them did anything to deserve this. Ask yourself, if roles were switched and it was you that was born in Afghanistan, you were that little girl, what would you want someone living here in Canada do for you? Would you want him to stay silent and keep scrolling down their social media feeds? Would you want him to attend the protest and go home and forget about everything? You're that little girl in Afghanistan right now. What would you want a Canadian whose voice matters do for you? We're asking for your solidarity in this fight. Do not allow yourselves to be desensitized to the pain and the loss of a nation that have witnessed decades of suffering already. The terror, violence, and destruction caused by the Taliban and other extremist groups should not be dealt with as an Afghan issue. This is a world issue. I repeat, this is a world issue. Even if the Taliban captures all of Afghanistan, they will not be satisfied. There will always be another target. This threat not only affects Afghanistan and the surrounding regions, but the entire world. Mark my words, once they conquer my country, they will go for another, and another, and another. And who's to say how close Canada is in their list? If the world continues to conform and stay quiet about the hypocrisy and negligence of certain countries and organizations like it has been doing in the past 2 decades, history will condemn us harshly. Our kids and grandchildren will ridicule us. We will have to prepare for another generation of extremism and terror. Remember, next time this can be yet the fate of another country in this world. What happens anywhere on this planet is going to have a very real domino effect on all of us. Are we going to continue to be indifferent and abandon them like this? Or are we going to unite as humankind to fight for justice? Or are we going to unite us as an ummah to fight for justice? The war in Afghanistan. Last one. The war in Afghanistan will not end until we collectively educate ourselves on the roots of this matter and actively work to dismantle them. I promise you that the Taliban will not last long because they stole a nation through bombs, gangs, and violence. I would like to end this speech with a poem that I wrote at the age of 14, which unfortunately remains relevant to this day. I'm a girl of war. I can stand against the Taliban, not with a gun, but with a pen. I'm brave and strong. I will not let them destroy my country. I refuse to be terrorized. I will fight back with my mighty voice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for that beautiful speech.
One big round of applause for that. I feel the power in the crowd. I can tell. already Ida John's speech and how it has struck so much emotion in all of us. I was standing there on the sidelines, just tears drawing down my cheeks. My name is Razma Hazrat. I am Afghan Canadian. And I do appreciate how Ida John acknowledged that we operate on the traditional, ancestral, unceded and occupied land of the Musqueam, Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh nations. My sister, a human rights lawyer, wishes she could be here today, but is in back-to-back meetings on humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Here are a few words that we have drafted together to share with you this afternoon. Where is the humanity? Where is the humanity in all of this? We have seen our beloved Afghans fall from the sky, and we feel that humanity has fallen too. We cannot abandon the Afghan people, especially the most vulnerable Afghans who have worked so hard on initiatives that reflect principles that we as Canadians hold so dear to our hearts. Principles of human rights, principles of freedom of speech and equality. These Afghans fought for them, many of them women, and all of them are in imminent danger. The Taliban are going house to house hunting them down. They are running for their lives as we speak, and we cannot watch silently on the sidelines. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we are looking to you for decisive and bold leadership in this time of crisis. We need speed, but most of all, we need heart in order to save the most vulnerable in Afghanistan. My sister and a group of Canadian Afghan lawyers have written an open letter to Prime Minister Trudeau calling for immediate action, and I will go through those main points. Prime Minister, we need you to continue evacuating Afghans. The borders along Iran and Pakistan largely remain closed, and now the most vulnerable are left stranded in Afghanistan. Prime Minister, expand Canada's resettlement program. 20,000 is a drop in a bucket when you think of the thousands of Afghans internally, regionally, internationally displaced. Countries such as Tajikistan have committed resettling 100,000 Afghans. The Canadian government must and will do more. Prime Minister, broaden the eligibility criteria under Canada's resettlement program to include Afghans trapped inside Afghanistan. One of the programs to resettle vulnerable Canadians requires them to be outside. In order to qualify, outside of Afghanistan, when you have ceased evacuations and the Iranian and Pakistani borders remain closed, we must save the most vulnerable trapped inside Afghanistan. Prime Minister, waive the UNHCR eligibility criteria and create a group designation for Afghan refugees so they can swiftly and safely flee horrific conditions in Afghanistan, conditions that you and many within the international community attributed to. With this change, Afghan refugees will only need to prove that they are Afghan nations in order to qualify as refugees. We have brothers and sisters who have burned their documents and have no way to prove, but we must urge that all they need to do is prove that they are somehow of Afghan nation. The Afghan community have been overwhelmed by the support we have received from our fellow British Columbians, like you all here. You have asked us, how can we help? And in response, we make the 3 following recommendations. For all of you here today, if you're to take anything home, take home these recommendations with you. Use your voice to raise awareness on the atrocities happening in Afghanistan. Whether that means using your voice on social media, speaking to friends and family, strangers, listen to this. Write a letter to your local MLA, especially your MP. There is a federal election coming up, and we need to put pressure on Ottawa and make the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan an election issue.
Second, if you are able, please give charities that are providing emergency assistance and supplies to Afghans that are stranded in Afghanistan and Afghans that are resettling in Canada. These Afghans are coming to Canada with only the clothes on their backs. They need your help, and they need basic necessities. Necessities of food, necessities of clothing and shelter. Every donation will make a difference. And third, if you are able, please consider privately sponsoring the vulnerable fleeing Afghanistan. We have many questions on how we can get them home since the requirement is to be outside of Afghanistan. Well, here is your answer. Sponsor them. In the next week, there will be a national campaign announcement on how Canadians can privately sponsor Afghans under the supervision of pro bono lawyers. My friends, Afghans and non-Afghans alike, let me remind you that us Afghans come from a bloodline of warriors. We have faced adversity and overcome it time after time again. We defeated the Mongols. We sent Alexander the Great straight back to where he came from. And we protected our lines after 3 British attempts of invasion. To the people of Afghanistan, you may feel abandoned, but we have warriors fighting for you right here, right now. We see you. We hear you. We will match your resilience and strength. We will raise our voices and we will continue to fight. I want everyone's fist up in the air and say it out loud to the people in Afghanistan so they can hear you. We hear you. We see you. We will fight for you. Salam, thank you very much. Peace to you all.
Thank you. امروز جای بسیار افتخار و سربلندی است که جوانان مثل این جوانانی که امروز صحبت کردند احساس از اینا را وطن دوستیشان کسان هستند که در اینجا حتی تولد شدند و این احساس وطنیشان اینا از ما که زیادتر نگران هستند به خاطر مردم افغانستان. یک گروپ جوانان دیروز در ایتالیا تشریف آورده بودند و با ما وعده کردند که با ما دوش به دوش به خاطر گرفتن اجازه اسپانسر شدن از افغانستان همراه ما همکاری میکنند که تمام کارها از اینا قابل قدر و سپاس است. لطفاً برایشان یک کف بزنید. آخرین نفر جناب انجینیر صاحب ناظم یک کوتاه با شما صحبت خواهد داشتن. بعد از او میریم به طرف راست، پلیس ها در پیشروی می باشه و بسیار منظم به طرف جنرال قنسولگری پاکستان میریم و اعمال ضد بشریشان تقبیه میکنیم. بعد از او راهپیمایی میکنیم به طرف سفارت امریکا و بعدا به طرف های خانه خود میریم. آقای ناظم، انجینیر صاحب ناظم، خواهش میکنیم که تا چند لحظه با شما صحبت داشتیم. Thank you.
First of all, I want you to give a round of applause for all these young girls. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for being here today. I have a few short messages. The government of Canada failed Afghanistan. The government of Canada failed the evacuation from Kabul airport. But we want this government and the next government to not fail Afghan Canadians. We will take this government and the next government accountable for what they are doing to save the families of Afghan Canadians. We are asking this government and the next government to increase this funny number of 20,000 refugees. This is not even close to refugee crisis that happened in the past 20 years. When we had refugee crisis from Kosovo, the number was more than this. When we had refugee crisis from Syria, the number was more than this. We want this number to be increased to 80,000 refugees. For the people of Afghanistan, I have a very short message. Your children are here, your voices are here, your advocates are here. These young boys and girls who are mostly born here, they are your voice. They will fight for your right. For the women of Afghanistan, my message is that you are not alone. Around the world, your children are with you. For the children of Afghanistan, our message is we will not forget you. We will not let you down. For Pakistan and United States, our message is this: the mess you created in Afghanistan will bite you. The mess you created in my country will come back to you. Long live Afghanistan, long live Afghanistan, long live peace, long live the children and women of Afghanistan. Thank you so much for everybody. Please follow the instructions. Please be peaceful.